All right, we're back for another one. How you doing, Zach?
Not too bad, Jay. How about yourself?
Not bad at all. And this one is another episode of We'll Name This Later. I think, we inadvertently missed a week or something like that. So we're back on the game plan. And, luckily, there definitely is some news that we do need to talk about. And basically, what it is regarding is the fact that the VA finally came back and they said that in response to the whole NAR settlement case and all that, they are thinking about suspending that rule where VA loan users are not able to compensate their buyer agents. So this is something that we definitely want to talk about a little bit, and just to kind of, maybe give a little bit of backstory and figure out where we're headed. So as far as I understand it, number one, this is not set in stone yet, right?
Correct. It's not set in stone. And for people that don't know, really quick, as a veteran, you have not been able to pay a real estate agent's commission. It is a hard stop in the VA manual. So if you're not familiar with that, that is exactly what we are referencing, this hard stop that has caused a lot of questions in the real estate community on really just, is it the right thing? What are we going to do? And this publication, it's not a circular yet from the VA or anything like that, allows the changes to where a veteran can pay their real estate agent's commission. Now, as you said, Jerome, it's not set in stone. I believe the date as of right now is June 12th.
June 12th. Okay. So how about we do this? It's never a great thing to speculate, but we should probably speculate a little bit on how they might try to enact this. Like, let's say they do suspend it. Um, how are they going to make it so that the VA loan users are going to be able to compensate their buyer agents? Will it be like, do you think they'd be able to get it already to where it be wrapped into the loan? Are they saying that it would be, a concession type of thing? Well, yeah, like, what do you think? How are they going to word it?
Yeah. So this is,
Obviously, this is all speculation for
yeah,
now. So,
this is the $1 million question, right? How is it? I think the way that it is going to be right now, I do not personally think it's going to be something that's wrapped into the loan. The
okay.
reason being is if, let's say, a veteran is not receiving disability from the VA, they already have that funding fee being wrapped into the loan. Then to wrap in a real estate agent's commission, I feel like is not going to be a thing because then I think we would be inflating prices if that's part of it, right? Because it
Yeah.
needs to appraise, has to show value. I do not think what they're going to do is allow that to be wrapped into the loan because as we've seen in the past 12 to 18 months, depending on where you're at, you may not have a lot of equity in your home and soldiers may be trying to PCS and
Yep.
be able to sell their home. I think adding an extra 2 to 3% into that loan amount is not feasible. Um, that is my personal speculation on this. Of course, though, I think a concession may be an option, which they haven't addressed yet. But I think at the end of the day, if we're looking at what is the easiest way to address this without causing a whole bunch of confusion in the industry, is just by allowing the buyers, if they have the excess funds, to pay it directly. Now, with
Yeah.
that being said, VA is very flexible on their seller concessions, so it could be something that is part of it. But
Yeah.
I feel like if we're looking at the most conservative approach to it, they just want people, if they do this, it's just going to be up to that veteran to pay that commission directly to the agent. I think when we look into wrapping it into concessions, loan amount, that's a whole lot of different changes to rules and regulations versus the
Yeah.
easiest avenue of approach that I personally see is, okay, I'm buying a home. If I have the extra 2 to 3% and the seller's not willing to pay my agent, I can pay them directly.
Yeah. So, and that's the thing too. I definitely want to bring up the fact that we started, when this settlement came down, we started seeing immediately agents and quite a few others that were like, "Hey, it's not like the VA is going to know, right? they can definitely still pay the agent. It just doesn't have to be, on the settlement statement and stuff like that, right? You started seeing people trying to figure out ways to get around it. And I'm thinking to myself, there's really no way around what it says in that VA pamphlet. It
Hmm.
specifically says that the client is not supposed to be paying for the
Right.
buyer's agent commission. It doesn't matter if you try to work around it. It doesn't matter if you try to do it hourly, if you try to do it as a flat fee or whatever. It doesn't matter. It just says they can't pay for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. There were some people trying to get around the guidelines and stuff. Um, and I think you and I see eye to eye with this. It's don't mess with the rules. There, especially in the
Yeah.
VA handbook. I would say out of all the rules and regulations of different loan programs, one, the VA handbook is the smallest compared to any other rule and regulation book by nearly half, honestly. And then the other thing too is the VA handbook is so cut and dry on your left and right limits. Seeing people try to kind of go around it was pretty funny. Um,
Yeah, it's
I,
ridiculous.
yeah, so I think with those three options, right? I don't see it being rolled into the loan. It really makes no sense. I think it would either hurt the buyer if there came time to sell, depending on how the market moves. The concessions could be easily changed in the VA handbook, but the easiest way that I see it is just allowing that veteran to make that decision if they want to pay their agent's commission because the seller is no longer doing it after the NAR settlement.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, there's not a whole lot more room for speculation. I guess we just kind of have to wait and see what happens. And then once it comes through, obviously, hopefully you and I can jump on again and we can explain, what it says line by line and kind of help people understand what's, coming down the pipeline. But it's good that we can at least chat about this and try to clarify to people what's coming. All
Yeah.
right. You got anything else to add on this?
I mean, just thinking about it, I think that this is really a double-edged sword of this rule being changed, and there's a few ways to think about it. One, there is a lot of bad information about VA buyers. They are in some markets heavily looked down on. They can't afford a home. They can't do this, that. Yep. This is the side that I think will highlight how veterans are not bad buyers. It's just bad information about veterans trying to buy a home because most veterans could potentially afford that 2 to 3% commission to pay their agent, right? There are some veterans that can't, and there are some veterans that can, just like there's FHA buyers that can and can't, and conventional, so on and so on. So I think if a veteran is able to pay that realtor's commission, it shows all agents in that transaction veteran buyers is just as strong as your conventional or your FHA. There's no difference there. The downside I see to it is that these rules about charges and origination or anything like that to veterans have been in place to protect the veteran buyer and reduce their expenses. So going back to if somebody doesn't have the extra 2 to 3% to pay their real estate agent's commission, this is where I see it hinders a veteran, right? How are they getting representation? How are they paying for everything? There's a lot more nuances, I think, that could hurt veterans in this case if that listing agent or that seller, excuse me, is not able to accommodate a buyer's agent's commission. So it could hinder some folks. It could also shed some light that VA buyers are just as strong as any other buyer. But then I'm curious to see, when we're looking at our buyers, right? Is this going to shrink the pool of first time home buyers for conventional as well? Is it going to shrink the pool for FHA? It's not just VA that the NAR settlement overall can impact. But right now we are highlighting the VA. And I think it's, we're going to see how it plays out. I think most markets like where we're at, we kind of have to maintain buyers and agents getting paid through the sale of the house, right? By the lister or by the seller, because we're in a heavily military town to where, I
Hmm.
mean, 50% of our loans are FHA and VA. And stripping that away and just telling them you got to bring your own money to the table for that, I think we're going to see some houses sit on the market a little bit longer because of these new rules. But it all depends. It's kind of the market is in a weird limbo of what's going to happen in the future. And I think the final ruling is supposed to be August 12th for NAR, and then this is supposed to take place June 12th for the VA. We're really going to have some light shedded on what's going on before going into the spring season, or excuse me, the fall season.
So I mean, there's a couple points there that I definitely have to add on to. So let's be clear though, right? Um, Conventional FHA, VA, right? Let's be clear. Those buyers are also not ponying up for their buyer's agent commission, right? That's not how that works.
Hmm.
The vast majority of all home buyers have always been getting their buyer's agent commission paid for technically from the listing side, right? And I put that in air quotes because, you know, listing side, really, who's coming up with the money? It's always the buyer. Doesn't matter which loan you're using or if it's cash even, it is the buyer, right? It's
Hmm.
just that we separate it in this industry by seller side and buyer side, but if we look at where the money's coming from, it is the buyer. So the buyer is always paying for the buyer's agent commission and the seller's agent commission, right? That's actually what's happening.
Hmm.
So to me, the strength of the buyer, they've always all been the same. That's the way I look at it. I wouldn't look down on VA loan users at all or FHA loan users. The fact of the matter is they were all capable of going out, getting approved for a loan, and coming up with that money. So who's paying for commissions? The buyer is, right? So that's the way I've always looked at it.
Yeah.
So yeah, so let's just make sure that that's always clear. Even though we have to, do the seller side, buyer side settlement statements in the industry, we all know where the money's coming from.
Right. And that's coming from the loan pretty much, right? They're bringing the
Yeah,
money in a sense. And I think to reduce that, put it on somebody trying to buy a home is going to be very interesting because everyone who has sold their home, or excuse me, everyone who bought their home and now wants to sell, they didn't pay their buyer's agent.
exactly. And a lot of them are going to forget that. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
They forgot the fact that they didn't pay for their buyer's agent commission.
Yeah.
Right. But now that they're selling their home, they're like, yeah, 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 I'm not paying for that. That's ridiculous. But
Hmm.
that's the way it's been. you know.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. But not to put it out there that that's going to happen en masse. I think that will take a long time for sellers to try to not offer anything to the buyer's agents.
Hmm.
Um, I think more than likely, even after July and August, the status quo will continue. They will see the logic in actually offering a buyer's agent commission. It's just logical to do that, to tell you the truth, because your pool of buyers shrinks the less things that you offer that buyer,
Hmm.
right? That's just how it works. You don't want to shrink your pool of buyers. You want to expand your pool of buyers.
Right.
That's just the way this works. Whether it's marketing, whether it's which agent that you're actually choosing to represent that property, and also what kind of um, cooperating commission that you're offering to the other agent.
Hmm.
That's how you expand your buyer pool.
Yep. So it seems like we're gonna see this thing shake out. It's just well, we know the dates of when all this is supposed to happen, just how will it, like, what's it going to
Yeah,
look like? I think
yeah,
some areas may actually be impacted by this more than others. Some rural areas that don't really see these kind of, VA loans. I know I've done some loans in some states where they didn't really understand how the VA loan worked just because they don't really do it a
yeah.
lot. So this is where you could see the impact in different markets that just don't, it's not accustomed. They don't really know how it
Yeah.
works, and things like
And I
that.
think
But
that's definitely important. You're definitely correct there, because here in our market, Colorado Springs area, everyone knows how the VA loan works. Everyone kind of gets it. Well, the majority of us anyway. But then as you move away, you start seeing that it's a little bit tougher to find agents and lenders that know what they're doing. I actually had a couple of people reach out to me, and they were from Denver, and even up there, it's just harder for people to find agents that understand the VA loan, the VA process,
mhm.
right? So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. This is where we're currently at, dude. So we'll see how it goes for the rest of this year leading into next year. Um, it's a lot of speculation and we won't know until the ball drops.
Good deal. Okay. All right. Well, I think that'll just about wrap it up, right? Nothing more further to add. Stay tuned. We'll drop some more info on we'll name this later if the ball rolls the way that we expect it to. And even if it doesn't, we'll still be back every 2 weeks. Tune in.
All right.